republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 5 is informational reports, and Veronica with the Chamber is here to give us a recap of 2021. And I'll just turn it over to you, Veronica.
Okay. Everything over here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Veronica Grosick, and I am the Executive Director of the Sturgis Area Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. And like you said, I am here for our annual report. And I just want to go through each of the sections in this report briefly, and then if you guys have questions or feedback along the way, please let me know, or at the end. And I did want to note also that if any of you ever want to talk about anything that we do outside of this annual get-together, then I am all ears, and I would love to meet with you. So, on page 3, I just have briefly stated here is our mission statement and our vision statement, so pretty standard stuff. In our mission, all I wanted to point out is that our 3 main areas of concern are business, agriculture, and tourism. So pretty much everything that we do through the Chamber and Visitors Bureau, I look at and I try to make sure it circles back to those 3 points as much as possible. The first main section here is financial trends. And it starts on page 4. And I have here a chart and some figures that are very detailed, and my goal with you guys is to be as transparent as possible and with the general public as well, because you are major contributors to what we do. So you can see here is the same chart and the same figures updated this year as I always put in this report. And as you can see, it's trending upward. We have eliminated all of our debt as a Chamber of Commerce, and we haven't taken on any new debt recently. We have established an emergency fund, and this year, 21 being such a great year, we are going to add to that emergency fund as well. So, and then I wanted to touch on, in 2021 specifically, there were a few things that contributed to us having such a banner year. And I think the underlying point to mention is fiscal conservatism. So we try really hard to do that. And one of the ways is that we had the opportunity to reconstruct our Welcome Center sign this year. It was taken out in a traffic incident, and we had originally budgeted quite a bit of money towards that after looking at some quotes and talking with some companies. And thanks to a lot of help from your Public Works Department and Rick Bush and some ingenuity from within our chamber board, we constructed in-house, and we saved a whole bunch of money there, so we're very proud of that. We also significantly expanded and we added to our chamber events in 2021. So some of our existing successful events, we were actually able to start making some money off of, so they can help contribute to our other year-round initiatives. And then we added some new events too to help raise funds for chamber operations. And then finally, for this past year, we did apply for and receive a COVID grant. So that helped offset some of our losses. But then I just want to note that we're really proud of being responsible caretakers of the funds that you guys give us. So I have some bullet points in here of how exactly we do that, but I'll leave that up to you. On the next page, I dig into some of the outreach that we do as a Chamber and Visitors Bureau, and we do pretty much everything. So we do print advertising for our members and events. We do radio, but here I have 2 components of our digital outreach specifically. So on page 6, I have a chart that shows some stats on our website. In 2019, we had a previous website and we averaged maybe 1 to at most 3,000 views a month. And then in 2020, we launched a brand new website. And since then, we have been getting absolutely incredible numbers, and we're up to 5,000 to 7,000 views a month, even in the off season. So that's not just during rally or in the summer months, that's year round. So we're very proud of that. Our new website is very visitor centric, but it is growing and evolving. And so over the last few months since we've had it, we've heard from our businesses in the community that what they really wanted was kind of an information hub and more information about not just chamber stuff and city events, but things that all of our member businesses are doing in the community in terms of events and their own initiatives. So we added a community calendar, which has been one of our best performing pages on the site. And I also added a few months ago a system for taking visitor packet and relocation packet requests electronically. So that's new, and I'm going to dig into those stats in just a second because I think it's very exciting. But if you haven't checked out our website, please do so. For social media, we continue to be doing very well, especially on Facebook. It's our primary social media platform. And as you can see, we outpace like Rapid City and Spearfish on a regular basis. So this is just 1 week's worth of data that it shows in this little table, but pretty much every week it looks like that. So it's a really big outlet for us. And on the flip side of that page, I have some specific screenshots that show the type of content that we are pumping out on a daily and weekly basis. So we have some really great engagement. And what my goal is as director is to have a balanced mix of business and educational content, but also content related to our events and our community initiatives too. So that's all I got for social media. On the next page, page 9, we are at membership. And as a Chamber of Commerce, of course, membership is a huge part of our revenue, as is for pretty much all chambers of commerce everywhere. And in 2021, we signed up 24 new business members. We lost 13, and in reaching out to them and having conversations, some of that was just additional fallout from the pandemic, and some of it was reasons outside of our control. So overall, we're at net new membership for the last year of 11. So we're at 308 right now, which is a really good number for us. And I do have a full-time membership coordinator. Her name is Kat, and she focuses on improving our membership in 4 different primary ways. She has the acquisition and retention. So she's always trying to bring new members on board, but she's also trying to make sure that our existing members, in some cases, members that have been around for decades, are getting just as much value out of their membership with the chamber. She's making sure that we have value-adding services. So in some cases, that might look like sharing out member information on our digital platforms, like I mentioned, or networking events. We do mixers, but we also do, like on the first Monday of every month, we have a retail gathering, so it's much more informal, but we meet at a different retail business each month, and we talk about what that business does, and we get a tour, and then all of the different retailers that are there have a chance to talk about their triumphs and challenges and ideas for making retail in our community better. And those have turned out to be really, really great networking opportunities. And also sponsorships. We put on a bunch of events, which I'll talk about in a second, but sponsorships are a value-adding way for our members to be more engaged with the events that we put on as a chamber and meet their target market and our community leaders like yourselves and other businesses and residents face-to-face. So it's extremely valuable. The last thing that Kat does for membership is communication and connection, which she, if you've met Kat, she does really, really well. So we track metrics for in-person visits on a weekly basis, email correspondence, phone conversations, in-office meetings, pretty much anything that we can to make sure that we are connected to our membership. Okay, on to, I believe, it's the Welcome Center. Yes. On page 10, I have some Welcome Center statistics. And here I have 2 charts that look very similar. The top one shows going back 3-4 years now, our in-person contact. So that's face-to-face contact with our visitors at the Welcome Center. On the bottom chart, it shows calls and packets that we mail out. So that could be visitor packets or it could be relocation packets. And I just want to show that over time, over the last several years, we've grown significantly on both of those charts. And we do have some planned improvements for our facility over the next coming years for improving in-person contact specifically. I mentioned this just a moment ago, but we do take visitor packet and relocation packet requests online now. And so now, on the next page, page 11, I have some charts for some demographic information that I have chosen to collect in survey form every single time someone requests one of those packets on our website. So instead of just asking for their name and their mailing address, I also ask them for what are some of the printed materials that you need to plan your trip. How long will you be here? What's the size of your travel group? What ages? What are your major interests? And all of that we have started being able to compile into these charts. So my overall goal is to be able to release this information to our membership once or twice a year at least, so that they can take advantage of our community tourism trends. And I think that's a really big deal for us, because we've always had some of this information regionally and at a state level and of course a national level, but not really at a community level. So this will be very helpful, especially for our tourism industry. And then my last section here is events. And on page 13, I have a quick bulleted list of some of our goals for putting on events. And then I have a table down below that shows in 2021 what all of the major events are that we put on. So there's quite a few. And if you were to compare the estimated attendees this year compared to the same chart last year, you would see quite a bit of growth for most of these events listed. I don't have on here some of the smaller ones like the business scavenger hunts and that type of thing, because they don't have quite as much of an impact as these larger events, but everything contributes to community. So we're doing the best we can, and we're continuing to make those events bigger and better. On page 14, I have just a blurb about the future of events. In 2022, as director of our organization, I really want to make sure that the events that we're providing add value. So I'm looking for quality over quantity. And some of the ones that aren't doing as well, we might not do them anymore. But the ones that are obviously big hits, like the ones I showed in the photos here and others, we want to make them bigger and better and keep having a bigger impact for Sturgis. And that brings me to the photos. It's really easy for me to talk about how many estimated attendees there are and how many sponsorship dollars we bring in, but it's really hard for me to show you and quantify the emotional aspect of it and how it brings our community together. So these are just a few photos. We have tons more on our website and social media, but I think they really highlight some of the best points of 2021 for events. And then the last page, I have just a letter, the standard letter from me to you with those same highlights and a big thank you for continuing to support us. And that's all I got. Questions?
Any questions for Veronica from council?
Comments?
Thank you, Veronica.
Yes.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. All right. You know where to find me.
Get it. Item 6 is announcements and praise. I just want to take a moment to pray here if you want to join me. Show praise to our Heavenly Father. We just appreciate the ability to come and meet, to come together as a community. We all come broken, and we just can't thank you enough for your sacrifice of your Son. His blood is our redemption, and just as we move forward, those that are hurting spiritually or mental health-wise or physically with health, we just pray use that as an opportunity to draw them near to you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Included in the announcements and praise on the typed out version, we have the city election is going to be held on April 12th. Petitions can be picked up starting January 28th. I believe they have to be turned in by the end of February, the 25th of February. I do have a few handwritten notes here, and I first want to turn it over to you, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Over the weekend, it came to my attention that social media is circulating news of my alcoholism. And I want to affirm for you that I am, in fact, an alcoholic, and I will always be an alcoholic. Alcoholism is what's known as a primary, progressive, and fatal disease. No one really knows the source of it, but they do know that it always gets worse, it never gets better, and ultimately it leads to the death of those who suffer from it. Unlike most primary, progressive, and fatal diseases, alcoholism can be arrested by working a program of recovery. I would like to tell you that I have been in recovery for over 11 years. I carry my sobriety medallion with me everywhere I go as a reminder that This is a disease that I will live with the rest of my life. Now, if there's anyone who thinks they may have a problem with alcohol or has a family member who has or may have a problem with alcohol, I'd encourage you to give me a call. I am always available to those who have a problem or who think they may have a problem, because I have learned through my experience that there is a solution. So thank you for the opportunity to make that announcement, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Thanks, Mr. Marshall. I got a few other notes here. I think one is inherent if you went to the internet and got the packet, but we are utilizing the new meeting management system. A little easier to read, I believe. It does also capture things historically. We are working, and it's going to be a pretty long project, but to get everything moved over and to make it all accessible when you go searching for things that have happened and agenda items and packets and things like that. But that is up and active and available on the website. This Saturday at 6 p.m., it's Torch Your Troubles behind the community center. The torching of the Christmas trees that were turned in at the city sites. On 11/10, which is a week from today, there's a special meeting with the Aquatics Committee at the community center in the theater. So it's a special council meeting at 6 p.m. at the community center theater. The following Monday after that, City Hall is closed for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The regular scheduled meeting of the Sturgis Common Council will be that Tuesday instead of Monday, which is the 18th. So that's what I had. Does council have anything to add to announcements and praise?
Real quick, I volunteer and help with the Sturgis AAU wrestling program, and just a quick shout on that. Both Jason and I volunteer and help with that program. We have over 140 kids signed up this year, which is a phenomenal number for us. And also our local Sturgis tournament is held this weekend, and it is one of the bigger tournaments this side of the state. Anywhere around 400 kids will be participating this Saturday, and so look forward to that.
Thanks, Dean. Anything else to add? Item 7 is department head update. We have Mr. Parker here with the Sturgis Liquor Store. So Travis, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Well, I'm not going to do near as good a job as Veronica, so let's not expect very much here. She had a lot of detail. I've got numbers and stuff, and that's really about it. So anyway, my name's Travis Parker. I'm the manager of the Sturgis Liquor Store. I started in May of 2017, and I'm still currently employed there. And so what we thought we would do is we'd kind of run you some numbers from the time I was there. So the first slide that we have, let me put my old man glasses on here, was our total annual sales and operating profit. In 2017, we were able to hit $2,287,000 in sales with a $557,000 operating profit. In 2021, we were able to hit $3.318 million in sales with an $846,000 profit. If you break that down day by day, which might be a little bit easier to understand, we were able to raise sales $2,831 a day for the 364 days we're opening here, and that will lead to an extra $796 a day in profit. Next slide is for our contribution to the general fund. This year we will contribute $381,716 into the general fund, which is enough to fund 80% of the community center to take that burden off the taxpayer. From 2017 to 2021, the contribution has increased 527%, or I'm sorry, 2011 to 2021, we've been able to increase 527%. And this does not include the revenue from leasing the parking lot during the rally or any of the sponsorship agreements. That is just the revenue that we make through the store. Our regional retail draw, we ran zip codes all the way up through 2020. We would, as people would come in, we would ask their zip code. We didn't do that in 2021. Kind of got lost with the pandemic and everything else. But anyway, it showed that we had about 24% of our total sales were from outside the Sturgis zip code. And the city of Sturgis represents about 70% of the 57785 zip code. So that actually means that we had more shoppers than that coming from out of town. With an expanded variety and competitive prices, we have draw a significant number of regional and tourist-related customers. We've actually saw a rise in our Rapid City customers and our Spearfish customers. And I think part of that is the fact that we have such a higher, we have probably the highest inventory or the biggest inventory anywhere in the Northern Hills. There is some stores in Rapid City that could actually compete with us as far as size. But they're also, they're not there as far as the cooler space that we have and just the actual products that we can bring in that they just don't have room for. The liquor sales are 297% higher than the statewide average per capita. And that's significant because in all bars in Sturgis with the rally going on, that's 256% higher than the statewide per capita average. And this grocery stores are only 10% higher than the statewide per capita average. Next one is probably the thing that we're the most proud of at the store, giving back to the community. In 2021, the Bourbon Draft, we were able to raise $7,500 for Sturgis Rally charities. We do a challenge coin during the rally, and that was able to net $10,000 that we give away to Sturgis Brown High School Scholarship Fund. We actually do 4 $2,500 scholarships, 2 4-year scholarships, and 2 VOTEC scholarships. We were able to raise $1,200 to Operation Ride Home, which is a program that Brown Foreman runs to bring veterans that are deployed home for the holidays. We were able to do $3,100 this year to Sturgis Brown High School Scholarship Fund just through our engraving, charging people for engraving. And we normally split that up in between 2, and we look for VOTEC again for those. Last year we were able to give 2 $1,500 scholarships to nursing students. We brought in another $475 with a grill raffle that went to the Meade County Animal Shelter, Sturgis Meade County Animal Shelter, another $630 for a fire pit raffle that went to the Sturgis Middle School Closet. And then we just got done with a Traeger grill raffle, which brought in just under $3,000 that we were able to give away to Sturgis Meals on Wheels and Cops for Kids. All in all, that is almost $26,000 that we've given back to the community and charities. 2021 new initiatives. We did in last year in, I want to say, the mayor can quote me on this, probably May when we bought the new van. Sometime around there, April or May. We paid $20,000 for it. To be honest with you, it saves us about $35,000 in shipping costs because every case we bring in the store, the distributors charge us $4 a piece. What's that? Yes, to deliver. And our January 2021 audit we did after we did store inventory with the state showed no variances, and it was actually at a loss percentage of less than 1%.
And we're getting fast.
Hopefully it'll go as fast as next year.
Right, that curses Travis.
I don't like having the doors locked.
Right.
This year, what we're looking at, we are actually in the process of buying a new cooler that runs the whole length of the south wall. The benefit of that is going to reduce our electrical consumption and actually give us more shelving space. We are continuing to work on a drive-through window on the south side as well. We want to continue enhancement of the rally experience, and we want to expand outreach to neighboring communities, detailing the wide selection, prices, and rewards program that we put on. At one time, we were the only liquor store that had a rewards program, but as things progress and people see that you're doing something right, they do it too. So I believe there's 2 stores now in Rapid City that run the same thing, or fairly similar to what we do. And that's kind of an overview of 2021. Would anybody have any questions?
Awesome.
My numbers and stuff worked. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Item 8 is city manager's reports. So Mr. Ainsley has a long list of volunteers and such, but I'll turn it over to you, Daniel.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The items for tonight are simply several volunteers that are under Different departments, we include them solely because they are part of our workers' compensation and liability coverages. So if something were to occur, our coverages would include those, but that's for the public library as well as all sorts of boards and commissions that the city has, and also the police department and also the volunteer fire department. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Item 9 is consent calendar. We have 9.1 through 9.13 tonight. Does council wish to remove any of those items and discuss them individually? How about anybody in the public wish to remove any of those items and discuss them individually?
Mr. Mayor, I'd request you remove item 9.13 for discussion.
We have a request to remove 9.13. Is there a motion accordingly? Yep. We have a first by Jason to approve the consent calendar minus 9.13. We have a second by Kevin. We do have minutes on there, so we'll go ahead and roll call. I'll start with myself. I'm yes. Kevin?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Becca?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And Jason.
Yes.
9.1 through 9.12 is approved. 9.13 is a consideration for a resolution to send a petition to the state election board. Questions or concerns on the process there for being pulled up? Come on up to the front, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try to be as brief as possible. I'm Kellen Willert. I'm an attorney, and I represent the sponsors of the petition that's being discussed in that item. First off, I don't believe there's any statutory authority for that board to make any decisions regarding this request. They do have the authority to make recommendations on petitions and forms and things like that, and to consider complaints pursuant to a federal Voting Rights Act, and that really comes to violation of voting rights. There's nothing in the statutory scheme that allows for them to make any determination on the form of this petition. Next, at the last special meeting on December 27th, it was represented to the council that I think it was 758 signatures were received on the petitions. If you looked at the petitions, in actuality, there was about 900 signatures. So my question I'm asking you to ask your staff is how many valid signatures were on that petition? Is that 758 the valid signatures, or what is that number? Where does that come from? Please ask that. And then next, as to the form of government, the city of Sturgis has a long history of acknowledging that city manager is indeed a form of government. If we go back to your minutes from February 20th, 2007, you had a resolution, 2007-09, resolution setting the election date for vote on change in form of government. That's exactly what we're talking about here with this petition, folks. Then in April of the same year, resolution 2007-15, your resolution canvassing the election for the change in form of government received 1,224 votes. Against the change in form of government received 768 votes. Just about every year, you pass a resolution acknowledging that the city has adopted the city manager form of government. For example, there's Resolution 2018-08, Resolution 2020-08, Resolution 2020-07, or excuse me, 08. And in fact, January 4th of 2021, Resolution 2021-08, again, recognizes that the city has adopted the city manager form of government. And just earlier today, item 48 on your agenda, which you just approved as part of your consent agenda. This is the resolution you just approved. The fifth whereas paragraph acknowledges that the city has adopted the city manager form of government. You just approved this, folks. At least be consistent. If the theory that doing this action under the form of government statute is correct, or that it's impermissible, then that means you don't have a city manager at this point. What was elected or voted in 2007 means there's no city manager form. So either give the voters the right to voice their opinion, just schedule the election, or even if we go to the Board of Elections, that's fine, but I think the resolution will be if that theory holds water, that there is no city manager form of government. So in that case, I guess we don't need an election. At the last meeting, the special meeting, I represented to you that my clients intend to proceed with a mandamus action, and I have the paperwork ready here today. And what I'm asking you is if you will admit service of those documents today.
That's a city attorney question for sure, and I think
I'm happy to discuss that with you in executive session.
sounds appropriate.
The last thing I have to say, and again, thank you for this time, is that this is an opportunity to do better. Schedule the election, it's really not that difficult. So I look forward to seeing if you take any action and will admit service. We can really handle this pretty quickly, and we can just go to the court, let the court decide. We don't even need the Board of Elections. So I urge you to vote no on the resolution before you on that 9.13 and just admit service. It'll be a lot quicker. We can get in front of the court. It is what it is. It's not the end of the world. Let's just let the court decide. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Willard. Council have any further discussion, questions?
I would imagine, and I think that our city attorney could go and maybe give us a little bit better insight, but it's my understanding of the state election board that it's not going to take forever for them to come up with a decision on this. And that it's quite possible that if the decision is, which it could be, that yes, this should come up for election, then it won't be that far down the line before, yes, there would be an election. Am I correct in thinking that?
The administrative rules give the Board of Elections 30 days within which to decide a request for declaratory relief.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or discussions from council? Go ahead, Aaron.
You know, one of the questions there, or one of the statements was, you know, we can do better. I don't think anybody questions that. I don't question that. I think we can do better. Better at what, though? Is one of the things that I've been, you know, I've had a lot of opportunities to talk with people over coffee, on the phone, over the last 7 days, longer actually, and trying to have an understanding of, you know, what problems we have. And, you know, obviously, if we were to not have a city manager, you know, that is one solution to what that problem may be, whatever. But again, I'm still trying to figure out what that problem is. I do think we have an opportunity here, and I think, Justin, you're talking about an opportunity, is to have some dialogue, have an understanding of what problems we think we may have. And then, again, that's one solution, but there might be other solutions that we can consider. When it comes down to the timing, you know, ultimately, you know, we get the response back from the election board. If it's determined you can have the election, and, you know, as I sit there and think about it, it makes sense that from a petition perspective, we'd have that opportunity. Now, I've never spent a lot of time in South Dakota codified law until the last 7 days. And what's been interesting is it's very specific on, you know, couple things. One, on how you can have a city manager in any form of government. And I've always thought it was a form of a government, but when I read through codified law, it basically says it's a condition of any kind of form of government. The election that you have initially, you have to have an election to be able, from that has the people telling the governing body that, yeah, we're good for having a city manager or not having a city manager. One thing that South Dakota's codified law is not clear. It's clear on how to remove a person from that position, but it's not real clear on how to remove the position. And that's a concern of mine too. And I do think there's some more research that needs done, and maybe asking the right question to get the kind of response, what that is. Because again, when it comes down, there are people in our community that want to maintain status quo, and there's people that want to change. Again, I think we should have that dialogue, understand what that change should look like, what is it we're trying to accomplish, what are the results that we're trying to get to. When it comes down to the timing of it, yeah, we can rush real quickly. I think I've been pretty consistent, in my short time here on council, is recommending that we should be patient with things. And ultimately, if we have the election, I'd rather make sure that we have time to do this right, because ultimately it would be the will of the people. If we go real fast, I'm not sure what, the only reason I can think go real fast is that maybe you're trying to capitalize on energy. I'm more or less concerned about energy is trying to get everybody's voices to be heard and everybody to be able to, if we end up having that election, so we have an opportunity to do, what is the will of the people, not just the will of a highly energized people. And I want them too. Don't get me wrong, but I want everybody to have an opportunity to kind of weigh in on this. This is a big change if that's what we're going to do. So again, we're just trying to work the process. We have lawyers are telling us a couple different things. I'm not a lawyer. When I read through that stuff, sometimes it's a little confusing to me because it seems like it's opened up to interpretation. But I think it's okay for us to be deliberate and ask the question on and getting some kind of response on giving us maybe either a decision, and maybe it's not a decision. Maybe it's just, here's what we think, here's what your options are, and throw it back to us. But I would like to have that opportunity to get that information. So again, I would say just be patient. If we're moving that direction, we'll move that direction. But let's do this right and deliberately. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Anything else from council? Any further discussion? Is there a motion for the item at hand?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve 9.13, consideration to approve resolution 2022-11.
We got a first by Becca.
Second.
We have a second by Dave.
I'm sorry, that's 9.14 on my agenda.
Yeah, you got yours too early. There's a duplicate there, Gary.
I'm okay being in the wrong.
Well, I got the same one. I just crossed my. Yep. So we have a first and a second on the floor for resolution 2022-11. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. That motion carries unanimously, and we'll continue to follow the process and protect the process. Item 10 is approval of the claims. Any questions or discussion on those? That too, if you were too early, Gary, it wasn't on. The link wasn't there either. Council or public discussion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a first by Becca to approve the claims.
Second.
Second by Dave. Any last discussion? We're paying bills, so we'll go ahead and roll call. Jason, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Becca?
Yes.
I'm yes. Kevin?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Bills are paid. Item 11 is reports. 11-1 is consideration second reading of the redistricting ordinance. This was the same as presented in the first reading. It is scenario 6. We tried pretty hard in the process to make sure there was natural barriers, i.e. I-90 or Junction and places like that. And although it's not perfect, it's pretty close to accomplishing that. It is an ordinance for this redistricting process. It happens every 10 years after census. If it does pass, it goes into effect 20 days after being posted in the newspaper. Mr. Ainsley, have anything to add to the redistricting discussion from the staff's aspect?
No, just once again to reiterate what you said, that there were no changes from the first reading, and scenario 6 tried to follow the most intuitive barriers possible so that it's hopefully as logical as possible, and that was prepared by our GIS coordinator.
Questions, comments, concerns from council on this second reading? Public input? Questions, comments, concerns? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a first by Dean to approve the second reading.
Second.
We have a second by Becca. This is an ordinance, so I'll go ahead and roll call it. Mike, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Yes. Becca?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And Jason?
Yes.
Redistricting passes unanimously. 11.2 is revisions. This is for Sidewalk. This is a discussion again. I think our original plans were to include, I guess the easiest way to put it, as we've gone through this process, our well-laid plans of ordinances have been changed. So we continue to dredge ahead, and Mr. Miller, I'll turn it over to you for the staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of the proposed revisions for section 1506, the unlawful obstruction and use of sidewalk cafe and vending. When we were originally discussing the mobile food vendor in November, this section was brought up just because it conflicted a lot with the mobile food vendor. So the purpose of these revisions are to try to reconcile the mobile food vendor ordinance with this to prevent any future conflicts or any sort of potential issues between the ordinances. The primary changes or revisions are, I added a penalty section to kind of expressly provide what potential penalties would occur if there was a violation of this ordinance. That way it clarifies any sort of enforcement mechanism. The obstruction part of the ordinance remains intact and untouched. That really doesn't affect the sidewalk cafes or the sidewalk vendors. The one large revision is initially the sidewalk cafes and I believe the sidewalk vendors. The ordinance wasn't applicable during the Wednesday before the rally to the end of the rally. The proposed revision changes that to the same as the mobile food vendor for the applicability. That way Title 31 for the temporary vendors applies during that time, and that's from July 15th to August 20th. And the objective is to try to make everything uniform between the sidewalk cafes and the sidewalk vendors, along with the mobile food vendors, are all on the same platform. And then another revision is adding in the similar kind of permit fees, the $75 running through the year, regardless on when the permit was obtained. And every year the person would have to get a new permit. And that's trying to make it uniform between the sidewalk cafes, the vendors, and the mobile food vendors. And then The sign and noise requirements are all modified to be uniform between the three ordinances or three sections, or this section and the mobile food vendors. That way, trying to create more uniformity. And the same with the insurance section. The original insurance section for these required a minimum of a $2 million insurance policy. The mobile food vendor didn't have that $2 million requirement. It was a requirement for a commercial general liability. So the language removes the $2 million minimum and just runs with the same mobile food vendor requirement to try to create uniformity between the three or the sections. And then the addition is adding an appeal section that outlines specifically what the appeal process is, which is fairly uniform throughout much of the code. And that is primarily the major revisions.
And this is for the discussion point that
Yes.
if scheduling allows and makes sense to move forward, it'd be at the next city council meeting, regular city council meeting for first reading. Does council have any questions for Eric on the proposed change? Go ahead, Kevin.
I do, Erica. I understand the idea of being uniform, but it is two separate ordinances. I think July 15th is a burden on some of our full-time downtown businesses, and question why we're looking at such a lengthy outage of them being able to provide an inviting and good feeling atmosphere on our main street that we've spent so much money and so much time trying to, draw people in. Almost to me, it seems like we shouldn't even have any date because the use on the street will dictate whether or not they can maintain and want to keep that outdoor dining open. In other words, the ordinance says the sidewalk has to be maintained open, and when their business gets to a point that is, they're so busy, they're probably going to pull those anyway.
Is that primarily geared towards the sidewalk cafes, or?
I think sidewalk cafes. I mean, it's a good experience to watch people. I mean, that's a big part of the downtown experience is just looking and feeling and enjoying. And it seems like having that date so lengthy in there, is a burden for our businesses.
Then with the sidewalk vendor, is that because one of the objectives is to prevent competition between Title 31 and this title for sidewalk vendors, and it appears there's some overlap between the two. So I know one recommendation would be to maintain that time period for the sidewalk vendor, but remove it for the sidewalk cafe.
What you're saying, I think. Come on up, Smith.
Yeah, he was holding his hand up, so.
I didn't have to call on him.
Councilor Forrester, I agree with everything you say there. And Eric and I had a discussion, and in the 12 years I've been with the city, never once has anybody applied for or obtained a sidewalk vendor permit. We do have what's called a mobile merchandising permit that we provide during the motorcycle rally as an additional to the temporary vendor permit, where they can merchandise, hand out free samples, business cards. Hey, here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm located. No one's ever come in and there was never even a fee. And I'll be honest with you, in my ignorance, I didn't know this portion of the ordinance existed. My recommendation is to remove that application of that sidewalk vendor permit because nobody uses it anyway. So that would be my recommendation to the council as staff, and that will help clarify and clear things up in my mind.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please, Dave? To remove?
Street cafe.
The application for the sidewalk vendor permit, which we've never issued one that I know of, that section, I think, because it's not utilized, should be removed from the ordinance, and that will help clear things up because it's limited to cut flowers, food, non-alcoholic beverages, and apparel. And we normally don't allow anybody to set up on our sidewalks because it does block the sidewalk. So I think that section should be removed. That'll help clear things up. I think the cafe dining has worked out well. We've had in the past, the wine bar has had a table out there, and Loud American, and I think those are the only two that have ever had that cafe dining. And I know the Loud American actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, paid to have that little bump out done the way it is, so they had that extra space. So to limit that, I think hampers them too. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
In the process of the ordinance process, which this council undertakes, we have this discussion process. So I think it's well worth the time. And anything to add? Go ahead, Becky.
Yeah, I do. So I guess I had a question regarding 15.06.06 in the appeal process for number 3. It says that if the person is not satisfied with the decision of the city manager, he or she may file a notice of appeal. So, and then it goes on to state that there's $100 fee assessed. Is that a usual thing that we do? I guess my question is, are we putting an undue burden on somebody financially in requiring the $100 to file a written review request? It just seems like a lot of money.
Because the $100 component of that is common throughout the entire code.
Okay.
I mean, one thing we could do is draft like a hardship provision.
Okay.
Where if the person, it would create a hardship or
Sure. Kind of a waiver that could be, or some kind of
Exception.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Any other discussion, council or public? Amanda's got notes.
I'm just reading the ordinance on your new app, by the way.
Isn't it nice?
Yes, very nice. I think it's D number 21 about the signage. It says no signage is permitted except for what appears on the business and a small foldable sign placed near the vendor. I just want to make sure that that statement won't hinder the investment the Downtown Sturgis Foundation has made in the come in, we're open signs. No. Okay.
They're not sandwich boards, but it's the same premise for sure. Daniel, you got something?
However, the same rules would apply that I forgot when Dave goes around and tells everyone they can't put them out on the sidewalks anymore. I think it's the week before the rally, but that still would apply that I think it's the week before the rally or maybe 2 weeks before the rally, they can no longer bring those signs out because traffic along the sidewalk is heavy enough that those really become an impediment. But other than that, they would be able to continue.
Any other discussion? Council or public? Well, if plan goes as planned, we'll bring that to first reading with some notes and some changes as we go. Do you feel comfortable with the input at this point, Eric, or do you need any clarity?
Just some clarification. Is the recommendation from the council to completely remove the sidewalk vendor portion and just keep the sidewalk cafe?
If we were to remove it, because obviously what was the problem that we were trying to solve when we kind of created that new ordinance? And if we did completely remove it, do we have a potential problem?
The sidewalk vendor portion, that predates me. Dave or Rick, do you guys?
Dave, you have an answer?
Well,
You can't bring your recommendation forward, is it again? We heard what you want.
No, I think it actually predates me too. And like I said, nobody's ever applied for one, so we've never issued one. So to have something that we're not utilizing, I think might kind of muddy the waters in there. And it does, if you did issue it, then we'd end up with, I guarantee we're going to end up with a problem on the sidewalk where somebody's blocking it, or the hot dog vendor cart lady sets up in front of the Loud American on the sidewalk, things like that. So my biggest thing is traffic and foot traffic concerns.
Not to impede.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you, Mr. Miller, on that before the packets are out.
And then the other one is the removing the applicability dates for the sidewalk cafes.
I'm for removing the dates.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is we're trying not to create more, create ordinance out there that we're not solving any problem. There is no problem to solve. And if we do have dates out there, if there's reasons that we need to have those dates, because we're trying to, there's a problem with it, then I think that's reasonable to consider. But if we don't have any problems, or there's nothing reasonable there, then like Councilor Forster says, why have those dates? But it seemed like maybe some more diligence is just kind of understanding the problem we're trying to get after and if this is the right solution or not.
Because ultimately the purpose of those dates is the applicability of the temporary vendor ordinance, Title 31. And in all reality, the sidewalk cafes are a little bit of a different animal. So there isn't a direct conflict between the two. So I don't think removing the applicability dates would impact any large significant issues.
Good to go.
All right, thanks, Eric. We'll move on from that discussion to the actual first reading, 11.3, Title 15-05. This is also sidewalks, proposed revisions. So turn it back over to you, Eric.
From the November discussion, the only real significant change is I added section 15.05.10 regarding rainwater discharge over sidewalks. And that's primarily aimed at, say, a building has a gutter running direct water discharge over the sidewalk. This would prevent that.
Thank you for doing that.
And other than that, the rest of the ordinance remains, other than fixing a few things, I think I had an error where I had maintenance under the construction portion, so I cleaned up that, and everything else should be the same. The ultimate purpose was to update the ordinance to fit with the legislative's 2020 revisions to the statutes regarding sidewalks.
Any questions from council about first reading for any staff member? Even Smith.
Mayor, if I could just point out that I have spoken with a couple residents about this as well, and they wanted to see if the city was going to be making any sidewalk upgrades this year, which we do plan on making some upgrades in different locations. And what we've done in the past, I would imagine we would do in this year as well, which is allow any individuals that need some sidewalk work done, that they would be able to include their project along with the city's project so that they could get hopefully a lower price point with that. And also what we've done is if someone has some financial difficulties, we've provided them a zero interest loan where the city would cover that, and then over a couple of years' time, they would reimburse the city for that expense. And so that's something that later this spring, probably April, May, that sort of thing, we would probably approach some of the individuals that have properties where we've had residents that have expressed concern about the sidewalk there. We'd probably approach them and, offer that up if they would be interested.
Appreciate that. Other discussion, public or council, on first reading, Title 15-05.05. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve the first reading of Title 15.05.
We have a first by Becca.
Second.
I have a second by Dean. Any last discussion? Again, this is an ordinance and a first reading, so we'll start with you, Kevin.
Yes.
Angela? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
And Becca?
Yes.
I'm yes also. First reading passes unanimously. 11.4. This is also a first reading. This is of Title 18, which is a scary chapter to open up in our ordinance book because of its quite robust in many areas. But Mr. Miller, I'll turn it back over to you.
At the November meeting, one of the biggest issues with this ordinance, the mobile food vendor ordinance, was reconciling it with 1506, I believe, the ordinance we just discussed. So many of the proposed revisions since the previous meeting is aimed at reconciling that, such as I believe the hours initially had it from 6 a.m. to midnight on Monday during the weekdays, and then 6 to 2 on weekends. In reconciling the two ordinances, I shifted the hours to 6 to 2 throughout the entire week to match the sidewalk vendor and the sidewalk cafe to prevent any conflicts between the hours. And then the insurance provisions are mirror images of both the sidewalk cafe, sidewalk vendor, and the mobile food vendor. Because initially this one didn't require any sort of actual monetary minimum, so it's just mirror imaging to the others. And then I think I added a line that the city must be on the insurance policy. Otherwise, there was discussion at the prior council meeting that there was an event requirement because normally the mobile food vendors can only vend on private property with consent from the owner. There was an exception to that when it was for events smaller than $100,000 with city approval. This removed that $100,000 but maintained the city approval. That seemed to be one of the aspects that wanted change. So with city approval, the mobile food vendor could vend on the public right-of-way. So then it broadens the scope of the possibility. And then there was one provision that had, if the city requested, the vendor was supposed to show the landowner consent or property owner consent. That seems essentially, it's self-remedying. If a vendor's on a private property owner's property without their consent, I'm sure they're going to act on that.
Oh, chief.
So I don't think the city really needs to get involved in that. And that's primarily, I believe that's all the proposed revisions.
Any questions for Eric? I think the main concern was in mid to late July and on the city street with music on Main and things like that. And I think we've certainly addressed all those concerns. Comments, questions, concerns from council on this first reading? How about public input on this matter? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the first reading of Title 18, Mobile Food Vendors.
We have a first by Becca.
Second.
Have a second by Dave. Any last discussion? Council or public? Go ahead and roll call this one being an ordinance first reading. I am a yes. Becca?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And Mike? First reading passes unanimously. Those will come forward for second reading, and as the process goes, posted in the newspaper and become law. Item 12 is other matters that come before the council. Anything not on the agenda need to be brought up in tonight's meeting briefly. Go ahead, Brent, come on up.
I'll try to do this quick, but I had sent an email to all the council members as well as all of the county commissioners. And it had to do with the 3 Mile agreement. And I did get an email back from AJ and Aaron, and Kevin called me right away. I think Dean gave me an email back, and then Dave came and talked to me, said we're gonna meet. So I guess basically, and then I did get something back from all of the council members except for Mr. Talbot. Was Zurich. So I guess basically what I wanted to bring up is the 3 Mile agreement is something that definitely affects the gypsies quite a bit. And I'm speaking on behalf of the gypsies right now. I guess I should say that. I think we did learn a lot about it as I talked to everybody. But I did want to say that this is one of the things that's very important to us, that we kind of see what's going to happen. And I think it also kind of comes down to one of those things of, we really want to mend any fences that we can from the annexation that comes from the club. There's some hard feelings on both sides from that thing. And I think that came down to lack of communication. And it was just kind of like it happened. And I think that those things can be avoided. And I think that this 3 Mile agreement is something that, as long as it goes the way it looks like it is, possibly there's a status quo. And I guess that's what we'd like to say, that if it does go the status quo, that makes a lot of sense. As you look at state law, it's kind of a checks and balances. What you guys have right now, I think, is a good thing. Limits the city's power in that they've made an agreement. This is what we're going to do in good faith. And for those in the county, it's a thing they know what that agreement is without something coming back to bite them afterwards. So on behalf of the gypsies, we'd just like to say we'd like to see it stay the status quo. And I guess lastly, I would just like to say thank you very much, AJ, for meeting with us. That was great. And thank you, Aaron. And thank you very much, Kevin. And really appreciate it. Anybody else, we'd really like to speak with you. We'd like to kind of do that thing where we mend any fence that we can. And we'd like to always say that the door is always open. If you call me, if I'm in town, I will meet with you that day. I'll just make you that agreement right now. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brett. Thank you. Any other items from the public? Go ahead, Bonnie. Come on up. You've been MIA on us for a while.
I know I have. So I'm a little behind the power curve, but I just want to say a couple of things that came up this week. The first thing I want to say is, how often I ask for a little breaking, a little slowing down, a little more time to consider, to share, to discuss, and I appreciate hearing from you tonight the desire for more communication, and communication takes time, and Aaron's perspective as well. because I stand on that soapbox pretty solidly a lot of the time. So that just came up in the last second. But I just want to say, with the storm that we had with all the trees down, with the things that the city did, stepping in, helping us get rid of our branches for the first time, and that I can remember in a long time. I mean, you always just had to scramble to try and do that. You know, I think the city has been doing more and more for us. I mean, what do people say? Well, where does my tax dollar go? What do I get out of this? Well, I think we're getting a lot out of it, and I'm trying to be observant and notice and shine a light on those things. I happen to be using the recycling area a lot, and had a bad night. I just came from the ER to here, so sorry.
Goodness, you're bleeding, yeah.
That's not good. I must have wrinkled. But anyway, I go out there pretty frequently, and I was one who was like, oh, it's so inconvenient because it was so easy to just stop downtown when I was away to the grocery store. But I didn't realize how quickly that use was growing and the volume that people are recycling. So I really, really appreciate that, because there are so many ways we can and so many ways we can't live responsibly and environmentally considerate. And so to see how much is happening at that site since it got out there, and no, it's no big deal for me to run out there now. Do it all the time. But again, in the land of communication, I just really think we've got to do more to educate people. I mean, I was out there this weekend. What part of Christmas wrapping paper is not cardboard? What does it take to get that point across? I mean, that dumpster, that corral for the boxes was just full. I mean, really full of cardboard. It's nice to see that the economy is thriving and people are buying and have containers that they got it in to throw away. But for God's sake, tell the difference between wrapping paper and cardboard. I think there is some confusion about pressed cardboard, and I'm not always sure. Can the cereal box go in there? That's pressed cardboard. No. That's a no, right? Yeah. Exactly, and I don't think that communication is clearly out there. But the more people do it wrong, the more it costs us to provide it. The more it costs us to provide it, the less there's money to put on the things that we're conscious of and care about, like the holes in our road and snow removal and stuff. So I'm advocating for doing a better job of communicating with our citizenry about recycling, the value of recycling, but how important it is to do it right, because it's not just another dump site. And with the wicked winds that we've had, I try to get out there, when the weather's bad, I don't get out there every month, maybe every other month. And I just go around and clean up I suppose I'm on your camera. I clean up the chain link, and I try to grab a kid or something that needs to do some penance and do the outside. But I've had a lot of things happening, and I haven't had the stamina for that lately. But we could use, because they're not using it correctly, we could use a couple more of those big dumpsters out there, because the packing materials, the people that do know the difference between packing materials and cardboard, there's not enough room in the dumpsters for that. We have nothing to do with the styrofoam, so I'd recommend that we have a place designated for the styrofoam that we can't do anything with, so that's not all mingled among everything else. But we do need some maintenance on it, and we do need some communication on it, because it offends me when somebody is too lazy or they want to get tidied up now and hauls their big black bag of holiday trash out there because they don't want it sitting at their house until pickup time. And again, I think it all goes back to talking about it, making people understand what the cost factors are, what the consequences are of not doing it right. I mean, I called the other day because you had the sign out that said, don't leave your branches here, we'll pick them up at the curb, and you're not picking them up at the curb. So I see that that's now underneath the newspaper trailer, so nobody's reading it and believing it. But I think it's a good thing that the city has provided and how that has grown, and I appreciate what it does for my conscience that I can do more things right with very little effort. And I have some friends who have mammoth carbon footprints that I am trying to reduce, but it usually means I have to do the hauling just to get them to do it, but at least if they'll set it aside. But I do think it's an area we need to talk about more. And I think people do need to understand more that if you're not going to pick up their branches, they've got to be responsible. They can't be cutting them up and putting them in the dumpster and us paying for them to go to Bellefouche when that's not where they need to go. And for crying out loud, if you can haul that stuff to the recycling area, why can't you haul it out over the hill to the landfill? And so, again, I like it to be upbeat. I wouldn't like to see it be chastising or disciplinary or critical, but people need to understand the consequence of what they're doing, and I don't think they do. And so, haven't been this upbeat about it the last 3 days, but I got that out of my system, and this is where I want to go. I just think it's a good thing the city does for us, and I don't think, that's not the only thing. That just happens to be where I was this week, but I think there are a lot of things like that the city is doing for us that never used to happen in days of yore, and my days of yore go way back. Thank you.
Thanks,
for doing
Bonnie.
it. Thank you, Bonnie. But let's communicate with people and some of our younger community members so that they understand the value. When I got out there and started cleaning, it was, like desk high around the chain link because of the wind. And another lady got out and got a bag from her car, started on the other end and met me in the middle. While I was there was a couple that opened the box and said, "Oh, crud, there's wrapping paper in here." She went to her car, she got out a bag, she put the wrapping paper in, and went to put it back in her car to go to her trash where it should, not in the dumpsters out there. And then there are people who bring their 3 dogs, and their dogs do their dumping at the recycle site too, and they don't clean up after them. So there needs to be some education going on, and I don't know where. I don't know if it's in the monthly newsletter. I don't see that stuff because I don't go on site. To online I don't do Facebook and that kind of stuff. It's just stuff coming from everybody. But can we talk about how to communicate with the community to appreciate and value the services the city is paying for and make it more economical for the city? But is it possible to get a couple more barrels out there so that the stuff isn't all over?
Hey, Bonnie. Earlier today, Mr. Mayor and the councilman appointed me the facilitator, chairperson for the infrastructure committee. So if you think it's appropriate, why don't you let me take this one on with the infrastructure committee a little bit. Took the notes down that Bonnie talked about, and to include what maybe we could do, find out what our current information strategy is on how to communicate and what we can do to work on that. So Bonnie, I'll take that one on the infrastructure committee. And
thank you.
All right.
Aaron, that is one way to shut me up fast.
I'm taking notes, Bonnie.
He said one time, Bonnie just won't give up. She just keeps telling me. And the person who knew me best, who was my colleague, said, if you will just indicate that you understand her point, that you get it, she stops and goes. Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Bonnie.
it, Aaron.
Any other matters? Council have anything to add? Mr. Marshall, Mr. Miller, request for further executive session?
Yes, briefly.
Is there a motion for exec?
So moved.
Got a first by Dean.
Second.
Second by Aaron. All those in favor of exec, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. We'll start at 7:55. Gives us 6 minutes. Thank you.